I could feel my heart racing as I held the steering wheel tightly, my knuckles paling against the wintry backdrop. I'd driven this path countless times, but tonight felt different. Maybe it was the solitude, or perhaps the fog was denser than I'd ever encountered. Combined with the snow, visibility was nearly non-existent. I couldn't shake the uneasy sensation that something wasn't right. Ignoring the feeling, I pressed on. Being stubborn by nature, I was determined to get home with my prize before the darkness made it even harder to see. I kept moving forward, dismissing the nagging voice in my head urging me to turn around. I had to bring that damn tree home. Every year, it was our tradition to visit Evergreen Christmas Tree Farm to select a tree for the family. I lived closest, but I never enjoyed the trip. I couldn't quite explain why, but something about that place had always unsettled me since childhood. This year, I was the only one available to transport the tree to my parents' house. Due to the snow and timing, I had to go alone. To make matters worse, I was late leaving work, and it was the last day to pick up and trim the tree before Christmas. Getting there before they closed seemed like a stretch. Admittedly, I was a bit nervous about going solo, but I was relieved my family wasn't with me in this blizzard. If anything went wrong, it would just be me to deal with. I made some progress, but my heart sank when I heard a strange noise coming from the engine. Suddenly, my car sputtered and stalled. I sighed in frustration and checked my phone, only to find there was no signal. Completely alone, I was stranded on an icy, deserted road in the dead of night. I stepped out into the freezing fog, the cold, damp air enveloping me like a blanket. Visibility was limited to just a few feet ahead, and the only sound was the crunch of ice and snow beneath my boots. Determined to find a phone signal or at least a house where I could seek help, I began walking. This area was sparsely populated, and even if a house was nearby, it was hard to spot through the thick white haze. I thought I might not be far from the tree farm, but I couldn't be certain. As I walked, the fog seemed to grow even denser, and an unsettling feeling crept over me, as if someone, or something, was watching me. As I trudged along, my mind wandered to memories of past visits. Memories of previous years spent here. A strange sense of dread settled in as I recalled that every year, we arrive, and always choose trees closest to the farm. It was a large farm with plenty of trees, but I always gravitated toward a taller hill at the back, where even larger trees stood. Technically, those trees were part of the farm too, but my parents always warned us not to venture that far back. We could easily get lost among the tall, densely packed trees. I shivered as I noticed tall trees lining my path, triggering vague recollections of a particular year. My brother and I had ignored the rules and played near the hill's trees. I remembered getting lost, separating from my brother, and then seeing something in the trees that I couldn't quite recall. All I knew was that it terrified me. Pushing the memory aside, I focused on the present. Suddenly, I spotted a snow-covered sign that read, "Evergreen Christmas Tree Farm." I had made it. Maybe if they were still open, they could help me get a tree and fix my car. I approached the main building where they usually sold pre-cut trees, only to find no one in sight. I searched the adjacent house and the farm's grounds but saw no one. Not even a parked vehicle was in the driveway, and I began to worry the place was abandoned and everyone had left. I slumped my shoulders, debating whether to keep searching or try somewhere else. The cold was intensifying, and I couldn't stay outside all night. As I pondered my next move, I noticed the freezing fog thickening and seemed to be following me. Out of nowhere, I heard a faint whisper in the fog. It sounded like my name, sending chills down my spine. I froze, looking around but seeing no one. Trying to dismiss it as my imagination, The feeling of being watched only grew stronger. I sped up my pace, my heart pounding faster with each step. The fog seemed to close in, as if it wanted to engulf me. Panic welled up inside me. I just wanted to get out of there. I began running past the main buildings and through rows of frost-covered trees, feeling like something was chasing me. The fog compelled me to keep moving until I reached the edge of the main farm grounds, where ghostly silhouettes of trees stood silent on the hill above. I stopped, an irrational wave of terror washing over me. I didn't want to climb that hill into the towering trees beyond. Something was out there, a half-remembered horror I couldn't quite place. I glanced behind me, thinking I might have escaped the fog's grasp, but then I saw a figure emerge from the mist surrounding the hill's trees. It was a woman dressed in a tattered white dress, her dark hair tangled around her face. She had a serene, otherworldly beauty, but something about her was deeply unsettling. I realized with a shock that I recognized her face. Suddenly, I felt like a child again. I tried to turn and run, but my legs wouldn't respond. I was frozen in place, unable to look away from the woman. She seemed to float toward me, her feet not touching the ground. As she drew nearer, I saw her eyes were black and empty, sending a chill down my spine. She stopped in front of me and whispered my name again, her voice a soft hiss. Finally finding my voice, I managed to stammer, "Who are you?" The woman merely smiled, a hauntingly beautiful smile, and pointed up the hill. A cold hand gripped my heart, and fear consumed me. I'd always been skeptical of ghosts and the supernatural, but in that moment, there was no denying their existence. Her smile twisted into a sinister grin as she reached out to touch me. I closed my eyes, expecting to feel her icy hand, but instead, a gust of wind blew, and a loud crash of thunder echoed. When I opened my eyes, the woman was gone, and I stood in a clearing surrounded by ancient-looking trees. The fog had lifted, and the moon cast an eerie light over the area. Looking down, I realized I was a kid again. I remembered the outfit I was wearing and felt utterly lost and out of place. Then it hit me. I was reliving the time I got lost in the trees on the hill above the farm. My parents were searching for me. This was a memory I was experiencing once more. I felt alone and terrified, the fear as intense as it had been back then. Trying to make sense of it all, before I could process anything, I heard a voice behind me. "Help me, remember," the voice pleaded. I turned around to see ghosts everywhere, floating around me in a haze of mist and fog. Some whispered my name, while others seemed to be in pain or anger. The nightmarish sight of ethereal forms dancing through the air was overwhelming, and I turned to flee. Terror drove me to run, but I felt a sudden weight in my steps and came to a halt. Looking back, I saw the ghostly woman again. She stared at me and pointed further up the hill, floating before me in silent judgment without uttering a word. Memories flooded back, clearer this time, bringing understanding and a sense of purpose. I finally remembered. Closing my eyes, I took a deep breath, feeling the ghost's presence guiding me. Then I saw it, the clearing in the forest. I remembered it well, despite trying to deny and suppress the memory. My body trembled as I looked down, just as I had years ago. There she was again, her body slowly being buried in a small clearing on the hill. I saw her long hair on the ground, her lifeless eyes staring at me from behind a nearby tree. An outstretched arm and the slow, methodical digging of a large faceless man burying her in an unmarked grave unfolded before me. The full weight of the memory crashed over me, making me reel from its intensity. I had seen her there. I saw her and never said anything. I was terrified, Too afraid of getting in trouble for getting lost, too scared of discovering something I shouldn't have, and most of all, too fearful if that man found out I told someone. I watched it all in silent terror and never told anyone. Blinking my eyes, I was back in my own body, at least in the correct time. I knew what I had to do. I grabbed a shovel from the tool shed near the farmhouse and trudged up the frozen hill in silence. The spirit's spectral presence never left my peripheral vision. I followed a path I didn't realize I remembered, found a small clearing, and began digging with the shovel. It wasn't long before I unearthed her remains, what was left of her after all these years. Looking up in shame at the spirit's terrible face, I saw she wasn't angry, just thoughtful. She nodded at me, and a heavy fog enveloped her, making her vanish before my eyes. The snowfall had lessened, and the fog began to clear. I carefully covered her bones and marked the spot where they lay. As I made my way back down the hill, I thought about the man I'd seen burying her back then. I couldn't recall his face, but it reminded me of a big story I'd heard on the news a few years ago. I vaguely remembered hearing about a man arrested in this county for murdering several women who had gone missing. They never found all the women, but I realized I had likely discovered one of his victims from when I was a child. I needed to call the police. I knew someone, somewhere had gone missing, and maybe if their families could have closure, it would be enough for the spirit to find peace. I returned to my car on the desolate road, turned the key, and the engine sprang to life. I had no idea how it started working again. Suddenly, my phone began ringing. I answered it to hear my mom's worried voice on the other end. "Where are you? We've been trying to call you for hours." I told her the truth. I had been delayed by the weather. I apologized and explained that I couldn't get a tree, but I was safe and on my way back now. Looking around, I saw that the fog had lifted and the storm had passed. It was as if nothing had happened. As I drove home, a sense of peace and relief washed over me. Glancing back at the road, I hoped I'd never be afraid of that place again. As I drove away from the Evergreen Christmas Tree Farm, my mind was racing. The memories from years ago were still vivid, but now they felt intertwined with the present in ways I couldn't fully grasp. My mother's worried voice echoed in my mind, reminding me that I needed to focus on getting home safely. The road was clear now, and the storm had passed, but an uneasy feeling lingered. I glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the ghostly woman following me, but there was nothing there. Shaking my head, I tried to push the unsettling thoughts aside. Maybe it was just the stress of the night catching up with me. I decided to take a different route home, hoping to avoid any more eerie surprises. As I approached a familiar intersection, my phone buzzed again. It was a text message from my friend, Jake, checking in to see if I was okay. I quickly typed back a response, assuring him I was safe and on my way. Relief washed over me, having someone to talk to help ease my anxiety. However, just as I was about to continue driving, my phone screen flickered and went dead. Confused, I tried restarting it, but there was no response. A chill ran down my spine. Was it possible that the strange events at the farm were affecting more than just me? I took a deep breath, reminding myself to stay calm. Maybe my phone had simply died from the cold. Deciding not to let it bother me, I focused on the road ahead. The lights of my neighborhood came into view, and a sense of normalcy began to settle in. I could see my house at the end of the street, its warm glow inviting me after the harrowing night. Almost there. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a figure standing by a street lamp. It was a woman, similar to the one at the farm, dressed in white and looking right at me. My heart skipped a beat. I slowed the car, unsure of what to do. She didn't move, just stood there, watching me. Gathering my courage, I pulled over to the side of the road. The woman began to walk towards me, her steps silent on the pavement. I rolled down the window, ready to confront whatever was happening. "Can I help you?" I called out, my voice trembling slightly. She stopped a few feet away, her eyes empty and haunting. "Help me remember," she whispered, echoing the words from before. My mind raced, trying to make sense of her plea. Was she connected to the memory I had relived at the farm? Before I could respond, she faded into the night, leaving me alone with my racing thoughts. I stared into the darkness, wondering if I had just imagined the entire encounter. Shaking my head, I started the car and continued my journey home, the weight of the night's events pressing heavily on me. The drive home was eerily quiet. The streets were empty, and the usual sounds of the neighborhood were absent, replaced by the soft hum of my car's engine. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching me, even as I approached my house. Parking in my driveway, I took a moment to collect myself. The house seemed normal, lights on in a few rooms, a welcome sight after the night's chaos. I grabbed my keys and stepped out of the car, the cold air nipping at my skin. As I reached for the door, I noticed something strange, a faint glow emanating from the backyard. Curiosity piqued, I cautiously made my way around the house to investigate. The glow was coming from the old oak tree, the same one near the tree farm that had always given me an uneasy feeling. I remembered how my parents had warned us to stay clear of it, but now, drawn by an inexplicable force, I approached. Underneath the tree, there was a small, weathered box illuminated by the mysterious light. My hands trembled as I reached out to touch it. The box felt warm against my cold fingers, a stark contrast to the chilly night air. I opened it slowly, revealing a collection of old photographs and a faded journal. Flipping through the photos, I recognized faces from the past, friends, family members, and a few strangers. One photograph stood out, a young girl with the same haunting eyes as the woman I'd seen. My heart raced as I realized the connection between the ghostly apparitions and the people in these pictures. The journal lay next to the photos, its pages yellowed and brittle. I began to read, the handwriting uneven and hurried. It detailed the experiences of someone who had been lost near the tree farm years ago, their struggle to find their way back, and the lingering sorrow that kept them tethered to the world of the living. As I read, the pieces of the puzzle started to come together. The spirit's plea for help was not just random. It was a call to remember and to find closure. Determined to help, I decided to delve deeper into the history of the Evergreen Christmas Tree Farm. There had to be answers, and I felt a responsibility to uncover the truth. Maybe by understanding what had happened, I could finally put the restless spirits to peace. Returning inside, I grabbed my laptop and began researching old news articles and records about the tree farm. Hours passed as I sifted through information, piecing together a timeline of events. It seemed that several people had gone missing near the farm over the years, never to be found. The recent arrest of a local man for multiple murders made me realize the severity of the situation. Could the spirits I encountered be victims of his heinous crimes? As dawn approached, I felt a sense of urgency. The longer I delayed, the more restless the spirits might become. I knew I had to act quickly to honor their memories and bring peace to both them and myself. With the information I had gathered, I felt prepared to take the next step in this unsettling journey. Armed with newfound determination, I decided to visit the Evergreen Christmas Tree Farm once more, this time during daylight hours. I figured that with better visibility and the truth unearthed from my research, I could confront whatever was lingering there. Despite the unsettling experiences of the night before, I felt a responsibility to help the lost souls find peace. The next morning, the weather was clear, a stark contrast to the stormy night before. I drove to the tree farm, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and resolve. The farm looked different in the daylight, vibrant and bustling, with families selecting their Christmas trees. But beneath the cheerful facade, I sensed an undercurrent of something dark. Approaching the main office, I was greeted by a friendly face. "Good morning. How can I help you today?" the attendant asked, unaware of the storm that had plagued me. I took a deep breath and explained my situation, showing her the photographs and journal I had found. Her expression shifted from confusion to concern. "I'm sorry to hear that," she said softly. "There have been rumors and old stories, but nothing concrete. I'll see what I can find out for you." She promised to help and directed me to the farm manager, a stern-looking man named Robert. When I met him, his demeanor was cautious but open. After listening to my story, he agreed to let me explore the farm after hours to investigate further. As the day went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The friendly interactions felt superficial, hiding deeper secrets. When evening fell and the farm began to empty, I returned with Robert's permission to stay until dark. Armed with a flashlight and the journal, I ventured into the heart of the farm. Navigating through rows of towering trees, I made my way to the old oak, the same one that had revealed the box of memories. The tree stood majestically, its branches swaying gently in the evening breeze. I knelt down, placing my hand on the rough bark, and felt a surge of energy pass through me. Suddenly, the air grew cold, and the shadows lengthened unnaturally. The ghostly apparitions returned, their presence more palpable than before. The young girl from the photographs appeared, her eyes filled with sorrow. "You found the journal," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I nodded, feeling a mix of fear and compassion. "Yes, I want to help you," I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. She guided me to a hidden area behind the oak tree, where an old, abandoned shed stood. Inside, the remnants of past lives were scattered, rusty tools, broken furniture, and signs of hurried departures. It was clear that something terrible had happened here. As I explored the shed, I uncovered more clues, personal items, diary entries, and evidence pointing to the dark deeds committed by the man who had recently been arrested. The pieces of the puzzle were coming together, revealing the tragic stories of those who had lost their lives here. Determined to bring justice and closure, I knew my next step was to share these findings with the authorities. The spirits depended on it, and so did I. With the truth finally in hand, I felt a sense of purpose driving me forward, ready to confront the darkness that had haunted the Evergreen Christmas Tree Farm for so long. Leaving the shed behind, I felt a mix of accomplishment and lingering fear. The farm, once a place of tradition and uneasy feelings, now held the key to resolving decades of pain and loss. I walked back to the main office, where Robert was waiting, concern etched on his face. "I found a lot," I began, showing him the items I'd discovered in the shed. "This shed was the site of something terrible. These people, they were victims." Robert took a deep look at the evidence, his expression turning grim. "I've heard stories, but I never believed anything of it until now," he admitted. "Thank you for bringing this to light. We need to inform the authorities immediately." Together, we contacted the local police, presenting the evidence I had gathered. The investigation reopened old cases, linking them directly to the recent arrests. It became clear that the man had been active for years, his crimes more extensive than initially thought. The discovery of his victims provided the closure needed for the families and, more importantly, for the spirits trapped at the farm. As news of the findings spread, the atmosphere at Evergreen Christmas Tree Farm began to change. The once unsettling place started to feel lighter, as if the weight of the past was lifting. Families returned to select their trees without the shadow of tragedy looming over them. That evening, as I prepared to leave the farm, I felt a gentle breeze brush against my face. Turning around, I saw the ghostly woman once more, but this time there was no fear in her eyes, only gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered before fading away, leaving me with a profound sense of peace. Driving home, I reflected on the night's events. What began as a frightening ordeal had transformed into a mission of redemption and healing. I realized that sometimes, facing our fears head-on is the only way to find true closure. When I arrived home, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Jake calling, eager to hear that I was safe. I answered with a smile, feeling lighter than I had in years. "I'm okay, Jake. You won't believe the night I've had." As I hung up, I glanced at the old oak tree's photograph from the journal, now framed on my desk. It served as a reminder of the journey I had undertaken and the spirits I had helped find peace. I knew that the Evergreen Christmas Tree Farm would never be the same, but that was okay. Sometimes, endings lead to new beginnings, and in this case, it meant a place where memories could finally rest. Days turned into weeks, and life began to settle back into its usual rhythm. The Evergreen Christmas Tree Farm thrived, free from the dark history that had once haunted it. Families visited with renewed joy, and the farm became a beloved part of the community once more. I felt a sense of pride knowing I had played a role in restoring its reputation. One evening, as I was going through some old files at home, I stumbled upon another entry in the journal I had found. It detailed more about the lives of the victims, their dreams, and the impact of their loss on their families. Reading their stories brought tears to my eyes, and I felt an overwhelming urge to honor their memories properly. Inspired, I decided to organize a memorial at the farm, a place where families could remember and pay tribute to those who had lost their lives. I reached out to the families, who were grateful and moved by the gesture. Together, we planned a ceremony that would not only honor the past, but also celebrate the resilience of the community. On the day of the memorial, the farm was adorned with lights and flowers. Families gathered, sharing stories and memories of their loved ones. The atmosphere was filled with a mix of sorrow and hope, a testament to the enduring spirit of those who had been lost. As the ceremony began, I felt the familiar chill in the air, but this time, it was comforting rather than frightening. The ghostly apparitions appeared, not as menacing figures, but as peaceful presences watching over us. The young girl from the journal stood at the front, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you for remembering us," she whispered, her voice carrying a sense of fulfillment. "Now we can rest." A collective sigh of relief seemed to sweep through the attendees as the spirits began to fade, their long-held pain finally easing. The memorial was a success, bridging the gap between the living and the dead, allowing both to find peace. In the weeks that followed, I noticed subtle changes in myself. The anxiety and fear that had once plagued me had dissipated, replaced by a newfound sense of purpose and connection. Helping the spirits had not only brought closure to them, but had also healed a part of me I didn't know was broken. One evening, while sitting on my porch, I felt a gentle warmth envelop me. I looked up at the night sky, the stars twinkling brightly above. It was as if the universe was acknowledging the closure we had achieved. I smiled, feeling a deep sense of contentment. Life continued, each day bringing new experiences and challenges. But the memories of that stormy night, and the journey that followed remained etched in my heart. They served as a reminder of the importance of facing the past, honoring those we've lost, and finding strength in the connections we share. As Christmas approached, the farm was busier than ever, filled with laughter and the scent of pine. It was a season of joy and reflection, a perfect time to celebrate the lives that had touched so many. I knew that the Evergreen Christmas Tree Farm would continue to be a place of magic and memories for generations to come. Months passed, and the Evergreen Christmas Tree Farm flourished like never before. The annual Christmas tradition was alive and well, with families visiting to select their perfect tree amidst the festive decorations. The farm had become a symbol of resilience and community spirit, a testament to overcoming darkness with unity and compassion. One crisp autumn afternoon, I received an invitation to speak at the farm's annual gathering. They wanted me to share my story and the journey that had transformed the farm's legacy. I felt honored and a bit nervous, but knew it was the right thing to do. On the day of the event, the farm was adorned with vibrant fall colors, pumpkins, and hay bales. Families were enjoying hayrides and picking out trees, their laughter filling the air. I took a deep breath and stepped onto the small stage set up near the entrance, the familiar oak tree standing tall behind me. "Thank you all for being here," I began, my voice steady. "A few months ago, this farm was more than just a place to select a Christmas tree. It was a place haunted by loss and sorrow. But together, we brought light back into this space, honoring those we've lost and finding peace in the process." The crowd listened intently, many nodding in agreement. I shared the story of my experience, the haunting apparitions, and the discovery of the journal that led to uncovering the truth. I spoke about the importance of remembering and honoring the past to heal and move forward. As I concluded, the crowd erupted in applause, their appreciation evident. Robert approached me afterward, his face beaming with pride. "You did it," he said. "You gave everyone closure and brought new life to the farm." I felt a sense of fulfillment wash over me. Knowing that my actions had made a positive impact was deeply rewarding. It reinforced the idea that even in the darkest times, there is always a path to healing and redemption. Later that evening, as the sun set and the farm glowed with twinkling lights, I took a moment to reflect. The journey had been unexpected and challenging, but it had also brought me closer to my community and helped me discover strengths I didn't know I possessed. As I walked through the farm, I noticed the familiar figure of the young girl from the journal watching over the festivities. She gave me a gentle smile before fading into the night, her presence now a comforting memory rather than a source of fear. With the farm thriving and the spirits at peace, I felt ready to embrace whatever the future held. The experience had taught me the value of courage, empathy, and the importance of facing one's fears. It was a lesson I would carry with me for the rest of my life. As Christmas approached, the farm was busier than ever, filled with the warmth of family gatherings and the spirit of the holiday season. It was a time of joy and reflection, a perfect culmination of the journey that had transformed both the farm and myself. Winter arrived, bringing with it the first snowfall of the season. The Evergreen Christmas Tree Farm was transformed into a winter wonderland, with snow-covered trees and festive decorations adorning every corner. The air was crisp, and the scent of pine was ever present, evoking memories of past holidays and new traditions. With the farm's new lease on life, I found myself more involved than ever. I assisted with setting up decorations, organizing events, and ensuring that everything ran smoothly. The sense of community was stronger than ever, and I felt a deep connection to the place that had once been a source of fear and now was a beacon of hope. One snowy evening, as I was wrapping up for the day, I noticed a familiar figure approaching, the young girl from the journal. This time, She appeared without any fear or sorrow, her presence serene and almost ethereal. She walked gracefully towards me, her eyes filled with gratitude. "You did well," she said softly, her voice carrying a sense of completion. "Thank you for remembering us." I nodded, feeling a profound sense of peace. "I'm glad I could help," I replied. "It's what you deserved." She reached out, placing a translucent hand on my shoulder. "Your kindness has brought us peace. Now, it's time for us to move on." As her hand touched me, a warm light enveloped us both. I felt a gentle warmth spread through me, dispelling any lingering fears or doubts. The spirits were finally free, their memories honored and their stories told. When the light faded, she was gone, leaving me with a sense of closure I had long sought. I looked around, noticing that the coldness that had once plagued the farm was now replaced with a comforting warmth. It was as if the very essence of the place had healed alongside us. In the following days, the farm continued to thrive. The annual Christmas event was a resounding success, with families enjoying the festivities and the magic of the season. The stories of the past were no longer shrouded in mystery, but celebrated as part of the farm's rich history. One evening, as I walked through the rows of trees, I felt a gentle breeze and heard a faint whisper. "Thank you." I smiled, knowing that the spirits had found their peace and that I had played a part in their journey. As Christmas Day approached, the farm was adorned with twinkling lights and festive decorations. Families gathered to select their trees, share stories, and create new memories. The spirit of the season was alive and vibrant, a testament to the resilience and unity of the community. On Christmas Eve, I attended the farm's special ceremony, where we lit candles in honor of the lost souls. Standing among friends and neighbors, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. The farm had become a place of healing, a symbol of how facing the past could lead to a brighter future. As the night sky sparkled with stars, I looked up and felt a connection to something greater. The journey had been long and challenging, but it had also been transformative. I realized that sometimes, the things that scare us the most can lead to the most profound growth and understanding. With the snow gently falling around me, I knew that the Evergreen Christmas Tree Farm would continue to be a place of magic, memories, and hope for generations to come. And as I walked home, the warmth of the season enveloped me, a perfect end to a journey that had changed my life forever.